What if those diagrams you spend so much time crafting for your projects weren't just static pictures anymore? What if they could actually become the foundation of your documentation? Well, today we're diving into exactly that, a really cool way to turn your diagrams into fully interactive websites. Let's get right into it.
So let's be real for a minute. We've all been there, right? You pour hours into making the perfect diagram, a system architecture, a complex flowchart, and what happens? It ends up as a static image, buried in some document, and it's pretty much out of date the second you export it. It just gets totally disconnected from the very thing it's supposed to explain.
But what if your diagram actually was the documentation? You see on the left, that's the old way, a static picture, totally separate from all the text. But on the right, that's the game changer. It's a living, breathing website that's generated directly from the diagram itself. Every single element can become its own detailed page, creating one single source of truth that, you guessed it, never goes out of sync.
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to cover the big idea here, turning a diagram into a website. Then, I'll show you step by step how you can get your first site up and running in just a few minutes. After that, we'll get into the fun stuff, customization, adding rich data to your diagram, and finally, we'll take a peek at what comes next, which is pretty exciting stuff. All right, let's get our hands dirty. Now, you might be thinking this sounds complicated, but it's really not. We're about to go from a simple diagram to a live, functioning website with just a handful of clicks. Seriously, I'll show you exactly how it's done. Getting started is actually super simple, and it all happens right inside GitHub. First, you just grab the template to create your own repository. Easy. Next, you pop into your settings and tell GitHub Pages to build from GitHub Actions. And finally, you just manually click a button to run the Generate HTML site action. That's literally it. 3 clicks and your site is live. Then comes step 4, customization, and that's where you really start to unlock all the cool possibilities. Okay, so you've got a basic site up? Awesome. Now let's make it actually look and feel like it belongs to your project. And the best part? You don't need to be some kind of web development wizard. We're just going to be tweaking a few simple files to get total control over the design and layout of your site. And this is where the elegance of this whole system really shines. You don't have to wade through complicated code. This site's entire look, feel, and structure are controlled by just 3 core files: the diagram itself, a page template, and something called a root action file. That's it, just 3. So let's break these down. Your diagram.drawio file, that's the heart and soul of your content, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. The page-template.yaml file is basically your design studio. You can switch between over 20 professional themes just by changing a single word. And then you have root-action.yaml, which handles the big picture stuff, your website's header, the footer, and the main navigation links. It's an incredibly simple yet powerful setup. All right, now for my favorite part. This is where we go beyond just a cool-looking layout and start creating truly dynamic content. We're going to embed data and documentation right into the shapes in our diagram, transforming each little box and circle into its own detailed web page. This is where the magic happens. And you do all of this by adding simple properties to each shape in your diagram. The documentation property is, well, where you put your content. You can use title to make your navigation menus look clean, add an icon for some visual flair, and even customize the page's URL with the ID property. And with role and cert key, you get fine-grained control over the entire site hierarchy. It's all managed from right inside your diagram. Now, this is a really important rule to remember. Not every single shape on your diagram is going to become a web page. A page only gets generated if an element actually has content, specifically if you've added a documentation property. And this is actually a really smart feature. It keeps your final website clean and focused only on the parts of your system that you've taken the time to document. So let's look a little closer at that documentation property. You've got 2 super flexible options here. For quick notes or short descriptions, you can just write Markdown or HTML right inside the element's properties. But for longer, more detailed content, you can use something called docref to link to an external file. This keeps your diagram from getting cluttered, but lets you pull in really rich content from anywhere in your project. The role property is your secret weapon for structuring your site. It gives you incredible control. By default, everything is a child page that shows up in the side navigation. But with one little change, you can promote it to the main navigation bar or embed it as a section inside another page. You can even make it anonymous, which means the page gets built but it's hidden from the menus. You are in complete command of your site's architecture.
So we've seen how to build a dynamic, well-documented website directly from a simple diagram. But what we've really done here is just lay the groundwork. This foundation opens the door to some even more powerful, almost futuristic concepts. So get this. Imagine if your flowchart didn't just describe a process, but could actually run it. That's the wild idea behind executable diagrams. Your visual model could literally run simulations, process data, or execute logic. The diagram transforms from just a passive picture into an active, functional part of your actual system. And if you want to take it even a step further, there's something called semantic mapping. This is where you create formal, structured data models from the shapes and the lines connecting them in your diagram. Your diagram literally becomes the blueprint for your entire data structure. You see, the website generator evolves into a serious engineering tool, and it all starts from that same simple diagram. So let's zoom out for a second. We've completely changed what a diagram can be. It's no longer just a static artifact that gets old and dusty. It's the living, breathing heart of your project's documentation. So the real question to leave you with is, now that your diagrams can be dynamic websites or even executable models, what are you going to build next?